And three, two, bang. There I am. Take two. Very strange things happen when you question this present Victorian state government, particularly corrupt police. But anyway, let's continue. So, this morning, this is disgusting of the highest magnitude. This is Daniel Andrews, Victoria. And unfortunately, I don't know, my Zoom and internet broke down when I made the first one. Who knows? Coincidence? Happens a lot for a coincidence, but that's the Victoria we really live in, thanks to a corrupt police force. Now, what is most sickening is today we have reports, and this is what a corrupt police force does. What we have, and Daniel Andrews installing his corrupted IBAC where no investigations get done. Just nobody polices anything because that might catch Daniel Andrews or Jacinta Allen out and they may lose votes. And that is exactly the Victoria that we're dealing with at right now. But why it is so sickening, because aside the resource after resource that I'm aware of that went into me, a lot of people are. The mainstream media, these peanuts, these mismanaged imbeciles, told people about it, thinking what they were doing was all, yeah, right. Look, we got to get it out of the state and all that. All they did was show everybody how corrupt things really are. Now, it's comical. It's tragic. So here we have, this is 13 odd years after the horrible, horrible incident, which we'll go to first, actually, the horrible incident that was Jill Maher. This was every Australian woman's circa 2012. Now it's almost like commonplace, like as in the girls are aware, they're all living in fear, which is just sickening in itself. It's more sickening when you know the corruption that exists, the job protection, the job justification that exists in the Victorian state government's offices and often in Victoria Police, the very people who are tasked with protecting them are preying on them. I mean, I know of stories literally where a drug addicted generational sex worker, her worst story was the fact that she had done the police and therefore the other girls turned on her. Now, let's combine that with this toxicity, this just sick. You can't be angry enough, Victorians, because we have corruption that persists in Victoria that is costing your sister, your mum, your daughter their lives and their right to live safely. And that's a fact. There's not one bit of exaggeration. It is a tragic fact. So here we have Jill Maher. Now, Jill Maher was out at about 3 a.m., I think, just a normal Aussie girl. I believe she might have been a migrant. I'm not sure. From Ireland, I'm not sure. But for the most part, her story is just a normal mid-20s Aussie girl out for a few drinks with her mates, walking home safely. She ends up getting raped and killed. But wait, ladies and gentlemen, it is a whole heap worse than that. Because who she is raped and killed by is a person who is on both parole and bail at the same time. Meaning, in effect, the system, Victoria's law and order system, may as well have raped and killed Jill Maher themselves. But wait, it even gets worse because this well-known convicted rapist, violent rapist, who had just recently been released from prison on a violent rape charge and was on parole for that violent rape charge, was then arrested down in St Kilda, which for those that don't know, that's the red light districts. That's where a predator like Adrian can go to get an easy victim. And that's tragic, but it's the facts. So he was found, he was arrested by the St Kilda police, maybe the Parole CIU, I don't know. But all I know is he was down in St Kilda, I believe, and was arrested and released on bail while on parole for a horrific rape and murder. So he's Jill Maher has been let down tragically by the Victorian law and order system. The reason I'm so because aside the fact that I'm aware of the literal abuses of surveillance equipment, the literal using drug addicted women as just in the most degrading, demeaning way. But in some cases, and I'll get to this story too, rewarding them, coercing them with the returned custody of their little toddlers that had been removed because of the drug addicted mess that their life was in. That's there's no room for an IBAC to sweep that away, correct? That's pretty bad. Now, here we have today, after having this outrage and Daniel Andrews and his left-wing government. I don't really care about lefts and rights as far. All I care about is what is going on in Victoria and what is going on, and in Australia for that matter, and the people. And what is happening is just sickening, and the average person needs to know. There's not a lot the average person can do. Daniel Andrews has made sure of that. Where can you report the corruption to? But what you can do, if you are a government worker, perhaps if you're, one of the nice drug court employees who shrugged their shoulders at me like, what can we do? Perhaps go to the media off the record. I don't know, but this cannot continue. And police corruption and abuses of power leads to exactly this. It's directly related. Whether you want to believe that or not, it's the facts. If you don't have a system that follows processes, before you know it, you're going to have organized crime infiltrate your everything, and you're going to have women, children, and elderly dying and living in fear in increasing numbers. You can't be angry enough, because when you know that there's systems in place to protect this, to prevent this from happening, but they have not been used. In fact, the opposite. They've been flipped around to protect those in the higher offices. It becomes very, very sickening. So this morning we have 13 years after Daniel Andrews' government, now Jacinta Allen's government, was going to eradicate that, was going to build the very dodgily run Ravenhall Correctional with more cameras and inmates and all these, programs and more clinicians and counsellors than there are prison officers, and it was going to be the be all and end all. And don't you worry, Victorian public, you vote for Daniel Andrews, particularly you left-wing people, and Daniel Andrews will look after you. What we got was a greedy, arrogant piece of dirt who was prepared to watch Victoria plummet into the ground as he's climbing up seeking his $100 million purse, even if it meant standing alongside Kim Jong-un and Putin in the process to do so. It's just sickening. And those in the higher offices that were there, that are part of this law and order breakdown, you should resign. You should at least cling to one little bit of honor and integrity and just get out of the way. Let the younger people come up and have a go, because you failed the Victorian people dismally. We have rapists and sadly in that Victorian people are women, children, and elderly. Have I said that? Now, rapist under supervision in community attacked woman during violent crime spree. A notorious rapist went on violent 2-day crime spree that included choking a woman in Albert Park. Despite more than 15-year record of committing violent crimes and clearly rubbing shoulders with Adrian Bailey in probably one of 2 sex offender prisons in Victoria, here's Theo Briggs under the supervised, watchful eye of the Victorian system, running around choking women and very nearly doing another Jill Mark. Now, in this, we have Briggs, 33, is one of a series of known sex offenders that Age has found committing violent crimes and sex offences while on supervision orders. Are you kidding? This is after the Jill Ma incident. This is after we had Sydney Road back to back of women outraged, and rightly so. But the thing is, those in the higher offices of Victoria Police, Daniel Andrews, that all the government departments, They're all involved. The prison system, Corrections Victoria, the parole board, hands down the parole board, are all linked to it. And look, 13 years later, nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing. It was all just tokenistic. It was worse than tokenism and perception because the people thought something was happening, but nothing was happening at all. All Daniel Andrews did was put systems in place to prevent the truth getting out, to prevent those pesky media journalists asking the wrong questions, from preventing data getting out. That's all Daniel Andrews is. Daniel Andrews' main legacy in Victoria is owning the only independent broad-based anti-corruption unit, owning that. He put that in. That was the first thing he did. And it shows. You can report. I reported where a toddler was used as leveraging by a very corrupt, a very dodgy police officer, clearly, if not more, and they didn't even bother contacting. How can you? Are you kidding? Wouldn't you want to go, how do you know this? Where? What? You know? Come on, mate. This is children. And speaking of children, on the same day, we have 10 kids die in state care. 10 kids die in state. 10 infants in Victoria's child protection system died after authorities failed to follow government mandated safety guidelines. Now, again, this would be half acceptable if there's a way of wording that as anywhere near, in the same sentence. If it hadn't happened before, if we hadn't had Jill Mars lost her life, if we hadn't had people reporting it, if we hadn't, you literally have to go to the media to come close to resolving anything. How is that even close to what a honest, decent people's bureaucracy is like? We've literally flipped it. We've flipped the bureaucracy so that the bureaucracy, which is entirely meant to protect the people. That's what a bureaucracy is for. That's what a bureaucratic management system is all about. It is about ensuring things happen correctly. All those processes and commissioners' requirements all get adhered to. What we've got is the exact reverse of that. We've got it so the bureaucracy now protects those in the higher offices and the politicians, and that is having a dead set devastating outcome on the average person. Again, particularly women, children, and elderly. Sickening. The fatal shortcomings of the state's flawed child protection system were unearthed in a report by outgoing acting Principal Commissioner for Children and Young People, Meagher Singh. The key to that is outgoing. And that's what we need. We need more people inside who are well aware of this, well aware of some of the misuses of AI that has led to the death of innocent people, including police officers, of toddlers, children, little toddlers. Yeah, here you go, drug addicted generation. Don't worry, we don't want to know you helped us get at a person who was questioning our corruption. Thanks, that's fine. I mean, come on. The report said the actual level of care and intervention given to infants in the system was lacking against the standard. How? We've got Daniel Andrews we've got governments who will just throw $500 million away like that to buy votes with things like the Commonwealth Games. We've got $1.1 billion prisons sitting empty for nearly 3 years. No inmates in it at all, while fully staffed, costing the Victorian public another 50 mil every year for nearly 3 full years. It gets reported as 2 bunkum. It would have been 3 full years, and those positioned in that prison, that ghost prison, would have all been the higher, longer serving, position themselves just nicely. No two ways about it. Rorting the Victorian public at the detriment of their children. Now, In one case, this is what it says here. In one case, a premature newborn died after being discharged from hospital with their parents, despite a long history of drug abuse and other children being removed from their care. This generational drug addicted person that I knew the case of well, who ended up being a paid informant, paid with the returned custody of her toddler, no doubt, no less. She held on to, this is how toxic and sick these people in the government and some of the police force are. She held on to one of her worst stories being having done the police. This is the fact. Her worst stuff up in life, for that matter, was having done the police as a 15-year-old, fresh to the streets of St Kilda, because all the other girls turned on her. Now, that's the toxicity that truly exists in some segments of Victoria Police that you can't question, because they'll harass you and bully you. They'll want it to be eradicated, literally. And you all saw it, fortunately. Now, this was a very, very tragic case. Generational drug addicted street sex worker overdoses in front of her child, loses the custody of the child. The child then, after watching this poor girl, I'm watching her literally nearly driven to suicide. In a great move, along comes some corruption and says, look, don't worry about any of that. You just help us get at Michael Califf and we'll just give you your child back, no questions asked. Now, when you report that, when you go, this is disgusting, this is sickening, the fact of how they treat this girl alone. Imagine being a young mum and having that degrading, demeaning experience to own. Yeah, if you want your child back, we see you can't even beat your drug addiction to get your own child back. But hey, don't worry, what we'll do is you just do this for us and we'll give it to you in Victoria, Australia. And then when you combine it with things like the Jill Maher story, you can't be angry enough. Then when you combine that with artificial intelligence being misused with the surveillance equipment that they've been shown recently to have been breaking the laws on, leading to innocent people dying, including police officers, you well and truly can't be angry enough. I just thought I'd let you know that. I'm going to do an all-encompassing podcast, if it interests you, on the Burke Street Mall incident, the Pusey incident, and I'll just point out a few things to you. This is sickening and it needs to be eradicated. If you are part of any of this and you don't do something about it, you're sick. You are sick in the absolute head. The power has gone to your head. Someone needs to snap you out of it, and quickly.